Welcome. Sorry for the delay. Let's hope it goes well. First things first, hello, my name is Rita. And next, yes, not that many nexts. Yes, my name is Rita. As Boda and Rui said, I work at the SDC here in Volkswagen Digital Solutions. And amongst you people, we have people who have worked in the SDC, people who work in the SDC, and who knows, people who might work for the SDC. About me, I'm a geek at heart. I'm also the mother of Pedro. He's 4.5 years old now. So everything comes together very, very well. Why? Because he likes Legos, I like Legos. We tend to get along quite well. As of the pandemic, or after the pandemic, I started cycling to come to work because the subway was packed, we didn't want to use masks, so nowadays I tend to have the bicycle as my main means of transportation, which is very cool. To wind up, I also like to paint. I paint a lot of mandalas. They take away the stress and they keep me focused, and it's something that I really like to do. And this photo was from about a year and a half ago. It was taken on the balcony of the SDC, and it showcases the amazing team that we had at the time. This is the SDC. As Rui said, this was something that that was created in 2018. Volkswagen was trying to branch out and to look for new places to set development centers and technological hubs, and Lisbon was one of them. What brought me to the What brought me to the SDC? I already worked with test-driven development in my previous company. I was a bit tired of the flow that I had there, and so I was looking for a different challenge and to do something that I haven't done before. And among all of those things that I've learned some things about accessibility and test-driven development. So today, I would like to tell you a little story. This is baby Hercules. He's a 0 when he was born. And this is big Hercules from Disney. And he got from 0 to hero during the movie. What I would like to tell you today is the story of how you can go from 0 to hero when it comes to accessibility. How? Well, let's get the topics running. Test-driven development. It is by definition, how you transform software requirements into test cases before you code any line of software. This is the definition, and we usually call it the merry-go-round. You'll get to see why in a bit. Accessibility. The definition from the dictionary, it is something that can be easily used or accessed by people with disabilities, or that is adapted to be used by people with disabilities. And when you think of accessibility, you usually think about ramps and stuff like that. But are ramps just for people in wheelchairs? Do any of you have babies? Babies? If you have babies, you probably know that ramps are really, really good. Are babies people with disabilities? Hell no. Accessibility means that things need to be able to be used by everyone, literally everyone. And what gives more about accessibility? It is grayed out. I hope it's still good, because it isn't grayed out here. We shall see. Accessibility. I don't know what's the level of knowledge of you folks. So one thing that I learned here is that accessibility, and usually when you Google it for accessibility within web development, you'll find ALE, A11Y. It depends on how you wanna type it, and it is by definition for web development. It is the capability of enabling as many people as possible to use the websites, even when those people's abilities are limited in some way. I would tend to scratch the second part, because it doesn't really matter if you're limited or not. Things should be able to be used by everyone. And this is very important, and today is the 4th of July, which is kind of funny, because why should we bother? Why should we care about accessibility? Well, for us in Europe, it's fine. For people in the States, it's mandatory. you have to be able to comply with accessibility for your website to go up. So we're a little bit far behind on this here in Europe, but we'll be getting there. Test-driven development. A little bit of context and to try and give you the overview why I think this is something that really matches in a good way. Test-driven development, how I came to know it and to use it was using this book. At the time, I was developing backend applications for data processing systems for mission planning. So satellites would go up, they would process their data, they would send it the other way around. Satellites would go up, they would acquire data, send it to Earth, and we would have to process it. So it kind of really needs to be what we were expecting. So test-driven development came for me in that sense. And what is it comprised? So you'll start with, as we saw from the definition, you'll start with a test, a red test, something that is failing miserably and that you will absolutely go nowhere with it. But you will write the as few lines of code as you can to make the test go green. And this is a good thing because it will make you just write whatever is necessary to make your code work and to make your application functional. If needed, you'll refactor because you have this safety net of the tests so that you don't screw up with your code. In a nutshell, this is what test-driven development is. For today, because I don't want to bother you or to give you a very complex example and you'll probably say, yeah, but I know nothing about accessibility. I'm at 0 point. Okay, let's start from 0. Let's assume that we know nothing. We are very noobs and we know absolutely nothing. Let's see what we have. We have a form, a very simple form with a photo, with some input fields, and with a button to sign you up. So if you were to translate filling up this form into some sort of a test, you would go into something that would look like this. We open a page. From the logo, the image that you have there, you'll see, okay, we are in the right place. We are signing up for Require LX. Good. Within the page, we'll try to find that section for the personal details. If more sections existed, you would also go through them. We click on enter your name, not enter your name, you would click on first name, you start typing, then you tab to go to the next thing, keyboards, right? Don't need to go for the mouse, you can tab. And we'll fill the surname filled up. You'll tab again, and eventually you'll find the button that has the sign me up text, and you'll click on it. And this should be the happy path for your application, for your dummy form. So how do we start? We start with a test. We'll write some very simple test, something that is very, very bound and very basic, let's say, but it will suffice to give you the pointers that I wanna give you for you to take away and plant a seed in your head. A test. I want to have a test that says it has the title for this element in the UI. It has a title and it has an input box. Okay, how do I make it work? A classic view of us. Okay, let's go. We will have, yes, we will have a title and an input. We'll have a title. Within the HTML, let's find a paragraph that says some random title, and let's find the input field that has the value awesome. When you run it, it fails. Yeah, it fails because duh, I already have something here, but it should have failed. This should have been returning null. Apologies. Why? Because come back? Yes. It's failing, not because it is returning null, but because we do not have the text input. So we'll have to go bit by bit, piece by piece, implementing the things that we need. And as such, we will have a paragraph and we will have an input with this. Within the UI, it will look as we intend. There will be a text and there will be an input field. But is it good? Is it something that we wanna have? Meh, meh, meh. Why? Did the other one? It did. Is it something that we wanna have? Meh. Because we'll need to start compiling things. We need to have, okay, we have the input field, but we also need the button. And we'll also need eventually the first name and the surname. So let's start building up things and putting things together. And it is a form. So if it is a form, I will probably want to have a first paragraph with first name, a second paragraph with last name, and then a button with sign me up. Okay, well, good. It's returning null, so you start with the very basic thing, the simplest thing you can do, and it is failing. Yes, we know the test-driven development, hence the merry-go-round. Let's give the test what it needs to pass. Okay, there's a text input, and there's a button to sign me up. Okay, we should be good because the values are there. However, there are two paragraphs. How do I know, the test, how do I know which one is which? I'm just going for the query selector. Okay, maybe I need to change this, this assertion. Fine. I'll get all the paragraphs. And I know that the first one is the first name and the second one is the last name. Good, green, cool, let's go on. However, this is us here in Portugal, where we have first name and last name. What about countries that use last name and first name? This will make a change. And if this makes a change on the way you perceive your application, your tests probably shouldn't fail on account of that. So if I'm just very, very naughty, and if I get here, and if I change this, and I switch the order of the elements, my test is about to fail because I changed the order. But your tests, they should be robust to these type of details. So at this point, we have a good reflection to make because we, the developers, we're probably the only idiots that press inspect and then we'll go, okay, it's a paragraph, yeah, cool, it's a paragraph. And it's the first one, yeah, cool, it's the first one. People that are using this form and people that will be filling out this form, they will not do right-click inspect. They will look at the text and see what's written there. So only us, the nerd people, we do this. So this segues into the testing library. In particular, because this example is built using React, the React testing library. And this is one of the biggest quotes that I would like you guys to take away is, the more the tests that you make resemble the way the users are using your software, the more confidence the tests will give you. And this means that, okay, if I'm looking at an input box, I'm going to find an input box. If I'm looking at a button, I want to find a button. And within this ecosystem, you have very specific queries. And these queries, they will help us to refactor that test that we had. So instead of having the query selector for all the P's that has the 0 or the 1, and then we change the order and we screw everything up, I don't care about if it is a paragraph, a heading, a div, a span. I don't care. All I care is that there's the first name, there's the text of first name within the screen that I'm looking at, and it is in the document. There's the last name, and it is in the document. And more importantly, there is something with the roll button that says sign me up. And with this, we enforce and we start slowly and bit by bit introducing accessibility within our tests because you're giving semantic meaning to the elements that you're using. Speaking of that, we have a get by text first name and get by text second name. But there are labels. Labels are probably the best thing that was ever invented because you get to know what things are. You get to know and clearly identify what is what. And in this case, for HTML, you have semantic labels, or you have semantic within your elements. And there's a very specific element, the label, that represents a caption for something, which means that instead of looking for some, we can go back to the text input, and instead of looking for some random text, we can look for a label. And the React testing library gives us this query for get by label text. So you will find an element with a very specific label. And this will pinpoint within your application what are the elements that you have. The test fails, you give it a label. For the field name, there is an input that is associated with it. Okay, you get to connect the strings and you get to connect the dots for what you're doing. And putting back the emphasis on the test-driven development, why? Because you have these queries, you have this framework that empowers you to do and to develop your code using accessibility at heart. There are plenty of queries. I'm not going to bother you with all of them, not by any chance. But another good example that you can think of, there was the image, and we had the image there for the require Alex. Okay, how do I find it? You can say that there is a test that says it shows an image to identify what you're signing up for. And in that case, yeah, I want to find the alt text for the meetup logo. Very good. It fails because there is no image. Fine. Of course it fails. And then you give it an image with the alt property. You've probably heard about screen readers and that they will help you to identify the things that you have in your application. Yes. But more importantly, they will drive, or the alt text as another property or another attribute from the semantics of the HTML, they will help you and they will help the users to identify the things that you have. And even more, if, as it is now, as I showed, yeah, sure, it's not great, but at least you know what you should be getting here. You don't have a random and a broken image without anything. So it's not much, but it's something. And this is something is totally on purpose. If you start with a few elements, if you start taking the alt text, if you start taking the labels, if you pay attention to the roles, you want to click on something, it's a button. It's not a div with the role button and with an on-click. It's a button. Elements have meaning, and please use them. It will help you, and it will help the people in the future. The example for this form will be, I will make it available here on GitHub. What gives? I promised you'll go from baby Hercules to super Hercules, right? No, you'll go to teenage Hercules, because you'll get to know that, okay, there's a path, we can do it, we can go through it, and eventually we can go the distance. We can take accessibility, use test-driven development, and go the distance and start maybe translating the happy path for filling out a form using only accessible elements and the testing library. So that was what I intended to show you. Thank you very much, and that's it. It's not a mic. I'm sorry, it's not a mic.
Yeah, I can pretend it's a mic.
If you can, wait.
Yeah. No, I won't do that though. I have a mic here.
You have a mic?
Yeah,
oh, congratulations.
Yeah. But can everyone hear me? Do I have to scream louder? Okay. We also have a live stream, going on at the same time. So really, the mic is for that. But yeah, thank you, Rita. Yeah, thank you so much for the talk.
You're welcome.
Yes. And now, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Me? Yes. What?
Oh, yes.
Kubu.
Yes, we
Yes.
have a.
The cube.
I'm about to throw this at you, okay?
Yes.
Are you a good catcher? Because I'm a bad thrower.
Boom.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yellow.
First of all, very cool presentation. Thank you very much. I love Hercules, the movie. So I hope I one day become a full Hercules myself.
Exactly.
So my first question to you is, okay, you're showing like React testing library, which really helps us doing writing the test and also test accessibility and application at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But can you also recommend any other tools that can also help me assist on the accessibility of my code?
Yes. You have a few plugins for React, for instance. You have ReactX, which is pretty much like ESLint, but for accessibility. However, in my experience, it depends on the level that you want to configure it and on the level that you want to be nitpicky. Nitpicky, it's not the right word, but on the level that you want to invest on accessibility. So ReactX, definitely, if you really want to go on an American way of, we need to comply, compliance or death, but it's a good way to start. And I think the React testing library, or the testing library, because it exists, since this is require LX, we're not only bound to React, we also welcome other frameworks. There are plenty of favors for the React testing library. For instance, if you're doing end-to-end tests and you want to go on the same approach as you were with your unit or integration tests at the level of the front end, you can also use the Cypress testing library. So you will have the same type of mindset to, okay, where is the button that says something? Can I click it? Where's the heading for this section? So the Cypress testing library, I think it's also something that at a higher level helps you to promote accessibility. But then again, it is within the umbrella of the testing library family. But linters, yes. And an exercise that I think it's really funny is to put your code through a screen reader. It is hilarious because one of the things that we used to do and we used to bear in mind is, okay, for the descriptions, for instance, for the alt, let's use snake case or dash or kebab case or whatever. And then when the screen reader reads it, it's just stupid. There's no sense in it. So use something that helps the users. Always put yourselves in the position of the user.
Can I do a follow-up question exactly on that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Sorry,
Don't mind me.
Monopolize here, but so because so the writing the tests, right, is like during testing time, and then the linter is static, right? You analyze. But now during runtime, let's say with applications on the browser, do you know of any tools that can really show you, hey, okay, your application has these accessibility errors? Because indeed, like what you're showing there is like the semantic part of the HTML code, but accessibility is much more than that, right? Like it's like the visual contrast example that you just showed, and the code cannot help or
True. I remember from last year on JS Nation, there was a very good presentation on a couple of websites that allow you to show and to see the color contrast and to find a good balance within your design, let's say. I don't know the link by heart, but I can Google it up or look it up on my notes, and I can share it on an aftermath of the presentation. Something that people usually ask, it reminded me, do we really need, can we test for everything with the tests, or do we need to rely on visual testing somewhere? I think it's a balance, but the more you can test with your tests, the less you have to test manually. So I think it's a good compromise to get as much as you can from automatic tests, and then just leave what the human eye is for what it is. And then you have to choose a good human eye, because you can have people that are colorblind, and then doomed.
Thank you. And just one last curiosity. Last month was the Pride Month, right? But this month is actually Disability Pride Month. So I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't. I didn't. Score.
Okay,
So can I throw this to now?
Yes. Anyone else got a question? Okay, maybe you can take your time to think of a question. I'll ask another one.
Out of practice.
It's okay. My question is, as a software engineer myself, I find myself splitting my time across many different tasks. Sometimes front end, sometimes back end, sometimes DevOps, sometimes business meetings, agile trainings. So I feel like if the time we spend on testing is very limited, and we have to find the right balance. Otherwise, we might just spend all of our times, writing tests. So where do you draw that line between developer productivity and, and perfect coverage?
First of all, perfect coverage, I think it's an illusion, because you can have perfect coverage and your code application can still be not good, okay? Imagine, for instance, a getter and a setter. You can have unit tests for a getter and a setter on the back end, and it gives you 100% code coverage. What's the value of a unit test on a getter and a setter? Not much. So on that end, perfect coverage is something that requires a balance. On how much time do we need to spend on the tests? I would say as much time as you do spend on the production code, because the tests will give you a confidence and they will give you a safety net to write the production code. Because you can go wild and crazy and write a bunch of lines and write a bunch of components, a bunch of functions, all of your application without a single test. And then when you start testing, or when the bugs appear, they will appear out of the blue. And then you'll have to go, oh crap, where was it? Okay, let's Command Z, Command Z, Command Z until a point where you thought it worked, but then it didn't, and then you added something else. It's not as trivial as it used to be. So for me and for this team within the SDC, the tests are a way to leverage and to increase your productivity, because you will only write the code that needs to be written to get the test working. And the fewer lines of code, the smaller the probability of introducing a bug. For sure, there will be bugs, don't get me wrong. And for sure, you will get a call here and there saying, hey, come on, it's not working, help. Legit. But the fewer the lines of code, the less the probability of getting a bug.
Yes.
And test-driven development and the lean methodology, they will help you with that. So do only what is required to make the test pass. Even if it is return true, okay. But then if you do a return true, right after that, you'll need to find a case in which it will return false. And then your logic will start piling up from the bottom up. And not from, okay, but what if it is true and what if it is false and what if it is true in some cases and then false in another? Don't worry, the tests will guide you. The tests will make you write what you need.
It's about like your personal judgment taste as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with both frameworks. I've worked in an environment in which tests were run and built and executed at the end, and by that time it was too late. The satellite was already up there, so you couldn't do anything. You couldn't send an astronaut there. No. Everything needs to be validated before. Everything needs to be configured up front. So in order for you to be able to do that, you got it.
That, like back in the 80s, 70s, the old school programmers, the one who's actually making spacecraft, they would spend 20 years, writing one program, because once it's deployed, once it's on the launch pad, you can't go back and rewrite your test. So we, today's developer, we're so lucky. We're kind of
We are so lucky. We are so lucky. We are so lucky.
Our code, we have to fix everything, but if you put out your mindset, it's like, okay, I'm launching as a spacecraft. I want to do the best I can, because once it goes production, it's out of my control. But if once you adopt that kind of mentality, then you would see that testing is more, TDD is more for your friend than your enemy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is, segueing on that, there is not a problem in having a red test. There is no problem in having a failure. The failure is how you learn. Okay, it's not working. Why is it not working? It should be working. So you'll go and you'll find a way to make it work. And this is valid for front-end development and for back-end development.
Okay, another question. Alfonso, catch.
Okay, thank you. My question is, and maybe it also correlates with your question a bit, which is, do you recommend using Cypress and tools like Percy to take visual snapshots to evaluate the visual aspect and visual accessibility, but at the same time, considering cost of using those tools.
Cypress, yes. Visual testing, it depends. Because for different, imagine the example of the first name and last name. If you were to, and the example of the first name and last name, in one of them you had first name before and second name the second. What is the value of your software? What is the value of your form? It is for you to sign up. It doesn't matter if the first name is the first element of the array or the second element of the array. It doesn't matter if the designers decided, oh, we don't like this in a row. We want to put this in a single, or the other way around. In a column, we want to put this like this. The functionality of the, or the main goal of the application, it is still fulfilled. It doesn't meet the design criteria. But that is probably where the visual inspection will go. So by default, I would say no. What is most important is the functionality of your program. But of course, people will be using it. So eventually, it will have to come into play at some point. And you can only deploy and you can only go live with something if it has been approved by someone. We all have continuous integration and delivery, but somewhere down the line, there is a little bit of a hatch in which we say, stop, it's not ready.
We've been using Percy actually for a bit of that.
And
it has been a good experience.
Okay.
Catching regressions mostly. Because, well, a person cannot look at everything.
True.
And Percy has been able to catch some of those regressions without even us, the developers. So, yeah, if anyone wants to try it, I like it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's our first talk. Thank you again, Rita.
Thank you.
Yeah.